Moving on to the third segment, that is the health and harmony. As always, we start off with the info card. For those of you guys that are new, pause the video. You'll get to see, get some more context as to what specifically this is pertaining to. Now, the topic for this one. All right, Dad. The topic for this
Okay, I'm
one
ready.
is, okay, did our ancestors know a sleep secret we've ignored? North is a direction. Maybe it's also a prescription. So that's kind of the thing, right? So the intro hook, they say your body is 70% water, but what if it's also 100% magnetic? This short clip suggests something radical. Your nerve cells align with the Earth's magnetic field. Radical, I mean, I grew up knowing some of this stuff, but I think it's still good for us to, talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's
let's
good.
let's check it out.
Sleep with your head north. You can add more time. If you breathe,
How do you sleep with your head north?
you find out what north is in the room.
What if my bed is this way? Which way is
Then
north?
you change, you
This
find
way?
out. I don't know. But I'm saying, here's what you do. I take a compass on the road with me, and when I go to a hotel, I find out north. You take a baby and put a baby in the crib, the baby will seek out north. We keep straightening the baby up. The baby don't turn all the way around the crib, it finds north. Once you lay down like this, every nerve cell in your body is pulled due north. So if you're sleeping north, there's no pull. Just like it pulls a compass, it pulls every nerve cell in your body. Sleep with your head north. You can add more time. If you breathe, sleep with your head.
So, sleep with your head north, right? I think this always made sense to me, and it reminds me of something that you were talking about before, and that's why I selected this video, this short. If you had to be I think it was knowledgeable or have wisdom.
Or
Remember?
intelligence,
Knowledge and intelligence,
sufficient intelligence and knowledge. Yeah,
right? And the knowledge part.
yeah,
It's better
yeah,
to have knowledge, right?
yeah.
And the reason I say that, and it reminds me of this conversation, is because I remember in high school, one of the things that I thought about is when I first learned that the moon impacts the water in the ocean, and that causes the ins and outs,
Waves.
the waves, right?
Yeah, ebb
High
and
high
flows.
tide, low tide,
Yeah, exactly.
tsunamis. All of this stuff is factoring the move and where that is, the moon. Sorry. And the reason I thought
Yeah,
that was interesting because when we talk about astronomy and all these other stuffs, there's real basis for it. And this is where the knowledge part, and I'll tie it back to this. The if the moon is that far away, this is what I thought back then. And you have this body of water called the ocean, and it's able to impact that. And we are supposedly 70% water. What is the moon doing to
mm,
us? If it's able to move
right.
that, what effect is that
Yeah,
placing on us, right? And so when I see this
yeah,
talking about the pull, I think these are things that are affecting us, and I think it's important as far as our health. How many things like this do we not see? When you see, but we all know that a baby, for example, will move its body, right? And you put the baby down this way, and then you go back to the crib, the baby's turned somewhere else. But all of a sudden now we're understanding that there's a magnetic pull. You have a compass, same thing. It's always due north, unless interfered with, on some other stuff. So the insight that I get from this is that there's a lot of traditional wisdom that we have, especially that we've forgotten about, that has gone missing. And I think that's somewhat ironic considering that we have the internet, we have access to all the information, and then we have ChatGPT now, yet some of the traditional knowledge, the things that were passed down, have been lost. And these are the things now that we're almost rediscovering. But, so these are some of the thoughts that are going through my mind. So I'll ask you that first question. Have you ever noticed a difference in sleep depending on where your bed faces? Probably not.
yeah.
I would think,
No,
unless
no,
you're
no.
really in.
Not this. No, this guy. Yesterday I was saying to Paula, like, that's where I got it from. It's turn north stuff and you can sleep
Mm-hmm.
better. But so I read it or watched it somewhere on the internet or in some book during my lifetime that if you turn to the north while you're sleeping, you will sleep in a more restful way. So I start doing that. So the answer is yes. as far as I know. But I don't know is because, what if it's because I heard this and then I turned north, right? Then that also let me sleep because I think, yes, I don't know, but I think it
Psychosomatic.
actually work. So I still try to do that as much as possible, because sometimes I can't remember and just lie down and then you're asleep and still sleep, right? Sometimes it depends. But I think there's some truth to that. And you also alluded or you just mentioned in passing that information given the internet, and now we have generative AI like LLMs and stuff like that, that information should be easily accessible. I think those informations are in a lot of cases it's very sparse. It's inside cultures. It's inside the elders' head, and stories. And like, for example, my great grandmother, you didn't get to meet. Yeah, you met your great grandmother, right? Yes, you met your great, but you didn't meet your great. Anyway, my great grandmother, she would just get different leaves, and no matter what sickness you have, she would just give it to you, and that fever and all that stuff is gonna disappear. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna work. Like, and that's coming from her great grandmother. So all of a sudden, you're like 200 years away. So I think information like that, because of the pharmaceutical companies and all that stuff, and the hyper capitalism
Do you think it was
in a
an accident? It was just
right? Area of the world with big pharma and all that stuff, that those information is going to be tabooed. So even if it works, people are going to say, that doesn't work. It's, like, it's crazy. Why you doing? Go to the doctor and all that. I really think there's a lot of information that's going to come back. I think that's even a business opportunity to go and ask old people in every culture you can, like, what would your grandmother say if you have cold? What would your grandmother tell your grandmother? So in a very short time, you're like 200 years back,
and
right?
what you're actually seeing this on social, where there's a huge move to a more traditional way of living as far as food, health. People are understanding that the red D40, like all these dyes and things that are in your food, people are really moving away from all of that stuff and understanding how intense the prices are like how drastic the prices have increased, right? This has a shift. And I think of it in similarly, and I'm actually happy about that, by the way, because these prices are ridiculous.
I think your audio is cutting out ever so. Keep talking again. Repeat what you just said.
Yeah.
So I will tell you if you repeat it. If you
Yeah. So I'll say that there's a huge shift. So we're talking about, the traditional ways of things 200 years back, been passed down for generations, and somewhat recently, the relative now, the last 100 years or so, all of a sudden that traditional wisdom that has always been passed down continuously has now been fragmented, and we don't have all that information now. But I feel like on social, there's a lot of trends to go back and rediscover and start living in more of those traditional ways. And so, what was the example that I was going to bring up there? Anyway, I just see from food, people are storing their food, storing it in the correct way. I mentioned the red D40, so like Doritos or a lot of the red dyes that they're doing now, people are moving away from them. They're becoming a lot more aware. They're having the artificial meats now. I don't know if you saw that they approved that.
yeah. I've
Today,
seen
right?
some of
So,
that.
this is using technology in a different way, and people
Yep.
now are starting to move back. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. It reminded me of the intranet, right? The idea of the shared economy. And I think
Yep.
what had happened was with a lot of these institutions, Ivy League, for example, one of the main reasons to have gone there is because of the access to resources that they had, both in their form of their library, but also as far as equipment that they had in those places. You were not able to get those. They weren't readily available in other places. And so that sort of hoarding of, how do I say, of knowledge and opportunity, really, in that sense, people
Yep.
rejected that. And so you had this whole counter wave that occurred, that you started to see the internet form. People were willing to work on that and share, and things that would cost
Yep.
a lot of money, that starts to open it up.
Yep.
right? Then you have
Yep.
open source come out, right? You had what was it? Wikipedia. I don't want to say Wikipedia, but you get the idea.
The entire internet, it's amazing that the movement of the internet, the HTTP protocol, the WWF, no WWW, the
World Wide
the,
Web.
the WWW protocol, not the HTTP. That's something different. But even the linking of different pages and all that stuff, the WWW part of the URL, that was given up for free. A lot of different the internet, and I think the same type of open source, decentralized sharing of information is here again, right? It's only going to get more and more expansive all over Africa and places like that, right? Because of the very soon, just to keep it in the health, that information is going to be shared much easier. But there's challenges to that, because the food supply right now, because of the pesticides and GMO seeds and things like that, right? The changing of the actual DNA of plants. So the rest of the plant after that one, doesn't matter how clean you want to, stay away from pesticides.
No,
and
that's
all that
true.
stuff. It's
I
in
heard
the
that for
DNA.
like apples and other fruits that you buy in the grocery store. Now, if you were to take the seeds and try to grow them, they can't grow.
No, if it and no, sometimes it not only can't grow, but it will start killing other stuff, other
Yeah,
plants.
that's too much.
Right? You know what I mean? Yeah. So some places in Africa and even India, they're kind of pushing back on some of that, because sovereignty of food sovereignty, right? Because if a few companies own the seeds and the seeds can't grow, and you have to pay intellectual property, and the farmers can't afford the seeds, then what you will find is that small amount of huge food companies, monopolies, duopolies, collusion for your food, for the world's food. So there's going to be pushback on that, because I don't want to get too political, but the world is splitting it into two camps, where you're going to have the Western camps, like America and Europe, North America, Japan on one side, Australia, New Zealand, right, on one side, South Korea. And then you're going to have the global South, which is everybody else. So you're going to find that there's going to be a split economic, geopolitical affairs. And that's going to trickle down into health, right? Because that's part of the whole thing. So again, you're going to start to see a big movement of that. Because last thing on this topic, how the West, remember we're from the West, so we can say how we, in some sense, is doing this is through like World Trade Organization, World Bank, IMF, right? So if you don't take our seeds, and if you don't take these food that has pesticides and stuff like that in it, then we're not going to get any loan. We're not going to give you any loans. Oh, and by the way, you're not going to have any visa, so you can't travel. So then you will see some very quick decision being made to let things in.
And so I think hearing all that information, and I'll kind of bring up the generational part in a moment, but hearing all that information, it does sound defeating, as if there's nothing for us to do, right? Nothing that we can do, right? And to a point, right? Like there is that level of helplessness at this state.
Yeah.
But we do have a lot of information, and I think this is where the internet, the shared economy has evolved. You have AI, you have ChatGPT, where you have access to this information now to say, you know what, this is what's happening. What are the things that I can do to ensure my health is as best as it is, right? What can I do on a daily basis? And I think that kind of brings back to this video here, right? Where
Yep.
sleeping north, all of a sudden certain things are aligned in your body, certain
Yep.
ailments or like sicknesses that you have. You're doing
This.
all these little
Yep.
things, right? And you
Yep.
can adjust your feed, just like how that YouTube short was on my feed, right? You can have that on your feed. You can start unsubscribing or blocking all the stuff that you don't want to see as best as possible. Obviously, they're going to force some things to you, but as best
Yep.
as
Yep.
possible, you tailor make your feed to do so many little things on a daily basis. You adjusting your bed due north, if that's the thing within your room and you adjust your room, all of a sudden now you don't have to do that ever again until you move. And if that's something that
Yep.
betters you 1% or, on your health
Yep.
for the
Yep.
rest of your life, you put enough
Yep.
of those together, that compounding, all of a sudden you've been able to do a lot more. So I think there's a lot of good. I do want to mention that because we're hearing it. And yes, the WTO, I remember bringing that up in business school when they're talking about the world trade and free trade, and you sign this agreement and that agreement, and they step in to make sure that the trades are fair and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, if that makes sense, how is it that Africa is the poorest country but it's the richest in resources? If the fair trade was happening and that was there to ensure that the equal value was being had, how does that make sense? And what we just read in that class that one time was how, oh, well, they import dirt and whatever. I'm like, why do they import dirt? We talk about coltan being needed in Apple, in phones, electronics. They get that
Yep.
from the Congos, but they don't import the diamonds. What they ended up doing through the world trade is import the dirt, supposedly, and the dirt apparently has these minerals in there, but the world trade is making sure and sanctioning and doing all the other stuff that they're going to do to make sure the dirt comes in, and they're paying for African dirt. However, it's all the minerals that they need in order to, and so
Yep.
and then we talked about, the corruption. This is to your point of the global point. The corruption, Africa and all these countries within Africa are corrupt because of the politicians and so forth. And then I asked the professor in that class too, I said, when we talk about corruption, to me, you have to ask yourself, who's benefiting from the corruption, right? And your camera
Yep.
is doing that thing. If you want to check the
Again?
recording. Yeah. You have to ask yourself, like, who's benefiting from the corruption? And who's incentivized, who's paying for it? That is where the corruption is. But we're talking about these countries. But that's a topic for a whole nother time. So we'll leave it there. That was the health and harmony. I think we could wrap it on that one there.